Farmers have a terrible time dealing with wild boars. In the process of searching for food, they dig up the ground, destroy pastures, and cause harm to crops. This invasive species reproduces at an alarmingly rapid rate, with each female being capable of giving birth to up to 12 piglets each litter and reproducing twice a year. This is a cause for concern because it is dangerous for the environment. Even though the local authorities have tried everything to keep the boar population under control, including laying traps, constructing fences, and even using poisons, the number of boars continues to increase. As a result of this, our group has made the decision to go out today, not only because we have a strong interest in hunting, but also because we want to defend the fields of farmers, which are being ravaged by wild boars on a daily basis. In the early hours of this morning, the sun was shining brightly, and we started our hunt in a tiny forest that was located behind the house of a neighbor. The team moved immediately to set up the weapons, take their positions, and wait for signals from the hunting dogs as soon as we arrived. Their actions were swift and decisive. The sound of barking finally made its way into the atmosphere after a period of time had passed. A wild boar that had been cornered by the hounds suddenly emerged from the trees and charged directly in our direction. As soon as I became aware of the possibility, I moved the gun in tandem with the movements of the boar and then shot it. Simply raising its back and causing it to wobble, the first 2 shots were executed. The bullet, however, was able to hit its target and bring it down fully with the 3rd successful shot. It was our first prize of the day, so we were relieved. Following a period of time spent carefully scanning the landscape, we came to the conclusion that this forest was quite small and did not contain a large number of wild boars. As a result, the team made the decision to relocate to a different location. As they continued to look for prey, the pack of dogs continued to be full of enthusiasm and ran ahead of them. For this reason, as soon as we emerged from the forest, we came face to face with the subsequent wild boar. Under a little brook, the boar was having a difficult time locating a route out of the area. With composure, I raised my weapon and fired. With a well-placed shot, the prey was brought down on the spot. An ideal hiding place for the boars was a mild hill that was located on the opposite side of the stream. The hill was covered in thick shrubs that were as tall as a person or even taller. On the other hand, if I had a vantage point that was advantageous and eyes that were continually vigilant to even the slightest movement in the trees, I would be able to track down the boars as soon as they moved. Certainly, not much longer after that, a shadowy figure stealthily slithered its way between the dense shrubs. A rapid succession of gunshots could be heard in rapid succession. One of them was lethal, although it wasn't a shot that killed me. After experiencing a moment of panic, the boar turned around and managed to sprint a few more meters in the opposite direction before fainting and tumbling down the hillside. After spending more than an hour in this location, the group made the decision to relocate to a different woodland area, specifically one that had a high frequency of wild boar packs. When we arrived, the pack of dogs immediately picked up the scent of a bunch of boars hidden behind some dense shrubs. They were able to locate the boars instantly. The trigger was tightened, and I fired a couple shots to flush them out of the system. The entire group became terrified and fled, their growls reverberating across the dense woodland as they did so. After that, I came upon a wild boar that was still hiding beneath the trees. I did not let the opportunity pass me by, so I lowered my weapon and fired, taking out the target with remarkable success. While searching for new prey, the group went deeper into the forest to search for it. I was able to catch a glimpse of a huge boar a little under half an hour later. We maintained our hunt until the late afternoon, at which point the entire team came to a halt on a path that led out of the forest. We waited for the remaining few prey before the hunt came to an end. There was a sudden dash across the road by a wild boar, which caused a cloud of dust to be created. I responded in a reflexive manner, raised my weapon, and targeted it with determination. Almost immediately after that, another boar made a hasty exit and became the subsequent target. One more accurate shot brought the prey down on the place where it was standing. As the sun descended behind the hill, it spread a golden-orange light across the landscape of the woodland with its gradual descent. We went back and retraced our steps on the trail, bringing the hunt to a successful conclusion, complete with a number of noteworthy successes. Over the course of the previous 2 weeks, residents of a rural district in Turkey have been making consistent complaints about wild boars ruining their crops and even attacking their cattle during the night. There were numerous standard approaches that were tried, yet the issue continued to exist. When confronted with this critical circumstance, our hunting team collaborated with the people to take action, and as a result, we started looking for these destructive invaders. On this particular day, this would be our very first ambush. When the first dark figures began to emerge, we had just gotten into position and established ourselves. In response to the gunshot, the boar, which was located at a distance, sprinted away and crashed through the underbrush in an attempt to flee. After going through a few more rounds, it finally fell to the ground in the forest, and I couldn't help but rejoice in that moment. The mountain slope was the next destination for our crew after we achieved our first accomplishment. Instantaneously, we positioned ourselves and made continual adjustments to our scopes as the herd moved in an unpredictable manner through the rugged terrain outside. The first shot was required to be taken from a large distance, which was a very difficult task. We were able to bring down a number of targets in the blink of an eye, however, since we were able to maintain perfect concentration and shoot with pinpoint accuracy. We had only traveled a short distance when, all of a sudden, another shadow that was recognizable to us began to materialize. As soon as it emerged from the brush, he made a swift, clean, and accurate escape. There was another wild boar that shot out of nowhere not too far away. I did not move from my position. I secured a firm hold on the weapon, and I began firing. Regrettably, my initial attempt was unsuccessful. I was fortunate enough to find that my hunting companion had been waiting farther down the slope. The second boar was seen falling heavily to the ground by another friend of ours who was standing just next to us where we were positioned. The sound of the gunshot echoed through the valley, and for a brief moment, we allowed ourselves to feel a sense of relief, believing that we had gained an advantage in this intense hunt. The dust and leaves stirred up by the fallen boar drifted slowly back to the ground, as if the forest itself was pausing to acknowledge the moment. However, there was little time to celebrate. Almost immediately, the loud and frantic barking of our loyal hunting dogs filled the air once more. Their sharp cries cut through the silence of the woods, guiding our attention to yet another wild boar that had been concealed deep within the undergrowth. Thanks to the relentless determination of our dogs, who seemed to sense our urgency, we were able to pinpoint the hiding place of this elusive animal. Yet, we could tell right away that this one would not be as easy to defeat as the last. This boar, larger and seemingly more cunning than the others, wasted no time in taking advantage of the terrain. It skillfully slipped through the tight spaces between the trees and disappeared into the thick vegetation that surrounded us. The tangled roots and thorny bushes that had slowed us down seemed to offer the animal perfect cover, as though the forest itself were helping it evade us. We opened fire, hoping to stop its escape, but despite our best efforts and the noise that filled the woods, the boar continued to maneuver through the thicket with surprising speed and agility. Every shot missed its mark, and within moments, it had vanished completely from sight. All we could do was watch as it disappeared into the wilderness, leaving us behind in frustration. The sense of disappointment weighed heavily on us, and we couldn't help but feel regret that this opportunity had slipped through our fingers. Determined not to let the setback dampen our spirits, we pressed on. As we made our way toward the pinnacle of the mountain, we continued our slow and steady climb over the rough, uneven, and rocky trails. The path was challenging, with sharp stones underfoot and loose gravel that made every step a careful calculation. The sun had begun its slow descent behind the peaks, casting long shadows across the landscape and bathing the mountainside in a golden glow. Our legs ached from the climb, but the thought of another encounter with the boars kept us focused. While we were carefully studying the terrain in front of us, scanning every bush and rock formation for signs of movement, something caught our eye. In the distance, we noticed a herd of boars charging down the slope of the mountain, their dark forms moving swiftly against the backdrop of the fading light. The ground seemed to tremble beneath the force of their stampede, and we could hear the low grunts and the sound of their hooves pounding the earth as they came closer. Realizing that this might be our last and best chance, we exchanged quick glances that spoke volumes. Without saying a word, we made up our minds that we would not allow them to escape so easily this time. Reacting with precision and urgency, we rapidly dispersed ourselves, each member of the group moving to strategic positions as we had practiced many times before. We worked together seamlessly, as if connected by a single purpose, spreading out to shut off the critical escape routes that the boars might use to flee. The adrenaline coursed through our veins as we prepared for the encounter, knowing that this moment would demand all of our skill, courage, and teamwork. The forest around us seemed to hold its breath, waiting to see what would unfold as we faced the wild boars once more. As soon as the boars made their way down from the treetops, my friend and I began firing our weapons. Both of them collapsed nearly immediately despite the frantic sprint that they were making. We had no doubt that there were further wild boars hidden in the vicinity. The group continued their hunt. Everyone was taken aback when, all of a sudden, a massive boar emerged from the bushes as our dogs were pursuing it with great ferocity. This, however, was not your typical prey. Not only was it powerful, but it was also shockingly agile. One last surge and then it crashed in the middle of the forest, bringing an end to an encounter that was extremely intense.